They say that the only difference between a writer and a crazy person is that the writer knows some of those voices in your head are worth writing down. When I first started this process, I was certain I wanted to do something with story, but I was pretty adamant about not writing a book. Because frankly, the English language makes me feel stupid at times. I mean, in the English language, you have 10 different ways of saying exactly the same collection of letters, and in English, phonetically is not spelled phonetically. Don't get me wrong, I do love words. I love listening to them, reading them, not speaking them, and not writing them. But lucky for me, a story does not have to be told in just words. I've always felt more comfortable in the realm of pictures, and thus I decided to write a graphic novel. However, the more I started working on this graphic novel, the more it started turning into an illustrated storybook, which was dangerously close to what I was trying to avoid. But I told myself I could do it. They'd be small stories, almost like children's stories. This world in which my final practical is set in is something I started conjuring up when I was 12. So there's a lot of content. I thought a great way to give people a taste of this world was to have a short story of each of the cultures I had conjured up. And these stories would be the same kind of stories a mother would tell their child to try and teach them a lesson. I thought this was a good way to show the mentality of the different cultures. And it started out wonderfully. But I got writer's block. Lucky for me, a great friend of mine, Chanel Bam, came along and invited me to go to the Kruger. Now, even at the young age of a few months ago, I was wise enough to know that when you are stuck in something, doing exactly the same thing that you had been doing before will get you nowhere near. This isn't just with writing. So I went on the Kruger trip with Chanel, brought my laptop, and with it an unblocker story, which is not the story for my project, but kind of like a creative pipe cleaner for my mind. And it was here, amongst the lions, the RV breaking down, the laptop shaking so much I could not read what I was writing, and a list of other travel disasters that always happen. But I had managed to write in 2 days more than I had managed to write in 2 months. I had reached a milestone of 20,000 words, which was, I was sure, the most I'd ever written on anything in my entire life. Now, it seems cute after 70,000 words, but at that time it was a real milestone. However, this was exactly the thing I was afraid of doing, a novel, because even though I was a good bookworm, I had no idea how to be an author. If being a good bookworm could make you a good author, I would be the Mozart of writers. But I'm not, yet. So, I did what any person of my generation does when I don't know what to do. I first asked my mum, then I googled it, then I looked at YouTube tutorials on how to write a book. And to my wonderment, my favourite author, Mr. Brandon Sanderson, introduced to me by my father, had loaded a series of online writing lectures. Online writing lectures. Free for any aspiring writer to listen to. I knew it was meant to be when Mr. Brandon Sanderson was firstly wearing a Batman shirt. Secondly, forgot how many C's was in success. This might sound strange, but it was very comforting for me to see one of my favourite authors forget a rule in the English language. This gave me a great boost of confidence, and I persevered. One of the things you learn about writing is that no one can actually tell you how to write a book. They can give you tips and tools, but in the end, you're the only one who can write your story. So that's what I did. I wrote, and I wrote, and I wrote for hundreds, literally hundreds of hours. It drove me off the wall a little bit, especially because I changed my story medium 3 times. Now, when you change your story medium, you change the story value points. To give an example, in a book you have words and your mind, there's not much else. Those words are the only tools the author has to try and ignite that story in your wondrous imagination. In a graphic novel, like it originally wanted to do, you have static imagery and a little bit of text. If the author wants to show you different voice tones or sounds, they have different fonts and the booms and the powers you see in comic books. In an illustrated storybook, you have a picture and words, but unlike the graphic novel, the visual will take you out of the story flow. In movies, you have visual and sound. Imagination doesn't have to do anything, but you lose something. That is my favorite part about books, the most immersing thing, which is the character's thoughts. This is not always the case. There are cases where movies have voiced the character's thoughts, like Fight Club, and done it successfully. But most of the time, the author has to rely, or the director has to rely on character reaction. And it does work. You can see what they're thinking. But it's just not the same. This difference is one of the reasons why people with beloved storybooks get so disappointed when that story gets turned into a movie, regardless of how good that movie is on its own as a piece of artwork. These are the kind of things that I became aware of when I started learning how to write a book. And again, writing and writing and writing, and hours of writing. It stressed me out quite a bit, especially the deadline looming ever closer. In fact, this week, in the beginning of this week, I hadn't even finished. You learn that no matter how many times you edit your book, there's still probably going to be something missing that was bugging you. But for all the stress it caused me, it made up for it tenfold. Because I discovered that when you're passionate in something and you delve into that passion, it does not deplete it, it feeds it. I had learned that I could love something I was already utterly in love with even more. In fact, you could say I became a bit obsessed. I was warned that becoming obsessed with something that's essentially fantasy, something that's not real, a lie, is dangerous. But I disagree. If we start calling anything that is untrue or not quite certain a lie, it leaves very little room for that inner storyteller in us all to flourish. And we all have this little storyteller. However, this little storyteller has gotten a bad name for itself, because it is the same storyteller that advised you as a child to say blame stealing the cookies on your imaginary friend, or the innocent sibling. But the storyteller isn't all bad, because the storyteller helps us in that space in between truth and lies, where things are uncertain, where we don't really know what's happening or what's going to happen. It helps us fill that space with possibilities, imagine that's, what ifs, could be's. It makes us think of new ideas. It gives us goals to aspire to. That little storyteller gets us doing things in spite of the odds, because it just might be. The storyteller knows that there are monsters out there, but more importantly, the storyteller knows those monsters can be beaten. It gives us hope. For all the good the storyteller can do, there's also the possibility of having an ill-nurtured storyteller. Often in hopes of grounding the dreamer, or the storyteller, and trying to squash him a little so he doesn't drift too far away. The unlucky people exposed to prematurely introduced truths, general pessimism, instead of silencing that storyteller, it makes him afraid. Instead of dreaming beautiful dreams, that storyteller fears nightmares. It creates phobias and limitations. But it is not these limitations that is the but the important thing to remember about these limitations is that they are the lies, not the dreamer. Because it is only when we accept our limitations that we give them power. And I'm so happy that I did not accept mine. Woo! Because guys, I wrote a book! going to continue writing the book series after this project is done. I'd like to give a big thank you to Mr. Brandon Sanderson. He doesn't know it, but he is my external mentor. And my internal mentor, my friends, my family, my classmates, and a special thanks to my mum and my dad for supporting me so much. And then I'd like to end off with a small little chant that helped me get through this process, particularly the bit that I just did, which was the 2 acronyms for fear. The first being forget everything and run, and the second being face everything and rise.